Answer would have been what until last Saturday. Madam Contest Chair, fellow Toastmasters, and most welcome guests. I had the privilege of witnessing this contest of sorts last Saturday called the Bigs. And it was explained to me during the preparation sequence that there are the bigs and the littles in speech and debate. The littles are when you qualify to make it to the state level, and the bigs, which I got to judge, the winners were going to nationals in Indianapolis. Probably would have been more cool in San Antonio, but Indianapolis is the nationals, and that's what the best in this area of the state were competing. Now I say privilege because I was asked to be a judge, actually succumbed to a certain person's persistence or desperation or passion for speech and debate, I'm not sure which, and discovered after I agreed that last Saturday the results of that agreement would be participating as a judge. Judges, by the way, profile of a judge, typically somebody who's a paid coach at a high school or a former speech and debate contestant, or a parent of one of the current speech and debate contestants, or somebody like me that gets roped into coming out on a Saturday morning. And I was happy to be that fourth category. Now, in 5 to 7 minutes, I can only talk to you about one of the categories, original oratory. I judged actually 3 categories and found each one of them to be unique in the preparation required and in the delivery of the content, and was just wowed by the commitment of the young people to what they were doing in each one of the contests. The others, by the way, were domestic and extemporaneous. You have a half hour of prep time on a topic that before you get there you're not really sure what it's going to be, and a question you have to research, develop a 5 to 7 minute speech and get up and give it. That, in my mind, is a pretty laudable challenge, and these were folks that were competing on that. And also dramatic interpretation, which before I left for that, the other judges at the table who'd been through dramatic interpretation before said, look, just remember that 50 minutes isn't that long and you'll be back to reality quickly. So, that wasn't actually bad at all, although that's how I was prepped for that. The original oratory, which I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about some of the contestants, were challenged with developing a 5 to 7 minute speech. Actually felt a lot like what we do on Thursday mornings. And this is a speech that they had developed from their own personal experience and were delivering in contest mode. So this is a speech they had given several times over the course of this school year, since last October and November, and had won to get to the bigs, or the contest to go to the nationals. Now, the first speaker was a gentleman who is a gay person, and his speech was an explanation of what it's like to be gay. Now, this is a topic that typically I'm trying to be open-minded. I think I'm fairly open-minded, maybe not so much, but it always makes me a little bit uncomfortable. And yet, this young man described it in such a heartfelt and yet scientific approach that I found myself being quite disarmed by what his message was and how real it is to be a gay person in a high school. It's really no different from being a straight person in high school, except that you're gay. And he talked about the fact that there's a guy on a show called Glee, I think his name is Kurt, and he's gay, openly gay, and has advanced the cause of gay people because he's so well liked. He said, but the problem is that gay people aren't necessarily like Kurt. And there's a guy named John Amici that played in the NBA for about 10 years, and he's a rather masculine guy. And he talked about this science that studied the hypothalamus, and gay men have a smaller hypothalamus than do regular straight males, and more the size of women. I found that very eye-opening, and a very interesting speech. That was the first one, and I thought to myself, in a contest, this guy was so good with his gestures and with his eye contact and just the way he delivered the message that I thought he would win the contest. By the end of the 5 speeches, he was number 4. And my green light has already come on, so I know I'm not going to be able to tell you about all 5 of them. However, I would like to skip ahead to a young lady who talked about patriotism and the fact that since 9/11, patriotism has actually gone down in this country. That day, that time around 9/11 when we all felt so connected, and yet people going over and giving up their lives for us, and we don't seem to even notice most of the time, most of us. And then she shared that she's a part of a family that has had 3 individuals go over to the war zone and 2 of them not come back. So she's lost 2 cousins, and as she admitted toward the end of the speech, her brother is now going over to Afghanistan. Very moving speech. I don't know if that's the green or the red light because I'm colorblind, but I do want to say that the winner for me injected a commitment to the written word and injected a huge amount of humor in his speech. He believes that writers change the world. Ask not what your country can do, ask what you can do for your country. Who originated that thought? John F. Kennedy. Wrong. Theodore Sorensen. He wrote it, John F. Kennedy delivered it. He cited 3 or 4 different famous statements made by presidents, and the president always got the credit for it, but the writer is the one who thought of that idea. I'm an English major from college, and this kid really connected with me, made me laugh, actually had one of the judges laughing out loud. I wish I'd remembered the funny line to throw it in here, but it struck me this Tuesday. I heard a half-hour speech that put everybody to sleep because there was no humor in the half hour. And humor connects people. And I was extremely impressed by all of the contestants. I don't know what you use, why you show up here on Thursday mornings, or what you intend to gain from public speaking practice. Maybe it's more poise. Maybe it's getting over colds. Maybe it's developing a better network of friends. To me, it's a chance to practice shooting for the bigs. Like these 14 to 18-year-old kids that I judged. By the way, the writer is my hero. Speaker was my number 1, the English major guy. We serve each other and hopefully build up each other. That's why this truly is, Toastmasters, a service organization and a very cool thing to be a part of. And I'm tabletop chair.
We will now have 5 minutes of silence as our evaluators complete their notes.